Movies. I love movies. We're going to be talking about some stuff that titles that this is just spawned from my generation of physical media. I absolutely love having the physical copy of it in my hands, and I don't really like to rely on, I know that with this new day and age of streaming and all that, which to me it's good and bad. I like the fact that it has kind of opened the door to some titles that may have been out of reach, that I couldn't get to, that may have not made their way to a physical media yet, such as like discs, the transition. I was there during the transition of videotape to discs, and I was that kind of resisted. But anyway, we're going to take a look and take care of this subject here, because I haven't really talked about this on the channel, on any kind of radio thing. Of course, I'm a collector mostly of this kind of stuff. This is really what I collect now, a great deal of, and that's a lot of different titles and everything. Now, a lot of this pertains to the horror genre. Definitely has gotten its share of collectibles out of print, hard to find, etc. We'll talk about that a little bit, and there's some other things here too. Now, not all of this stuff that I have here is so-called out of print, hard to find, or a great deal of money that they want for it, but it's also talking not just the titles, but distributors. When you're looking at this stuff, distributors, that could also very much affect things. So before we get into some of this other stuff here that that's still in print, you can still buy, let's look at some of the other things. Like, all right, Dawn of the Dead. This is a classic movie. I saw this way back on TV. It was probably a Joe Bob Briggs Monster Vision, for those of you that remember that. That was on, I believe, TNT. He showed a lot of cool horror flicks, and that's how I got to see a lot of them. It usually appeared on late night, Joe Bob Briggs Monster Vision, and that's how I saw Dawn of the Dead very first time. I love zombie movies, and George Romero is definitely the godfather of it all. This movie, even back when I was trying to get it on videotape, it was very hard to find. Could not get a hold of it. I had taped it from TV. That's how I had one, a bootleg basically of it. In a sense, that's the old school bootleg, I guess. Or you tape it from the television. You set your VCR to that channel and you hit it in there, put the blank tape in, hit record. But this one was very difficult for a long time, and then eventually when things moved over to DVD, I was looking for it on DVD. It was pretty much non-existent yet, and then Anchor Bay, which that's who this company is right here, and I don't think they're in business anymore, but Anchor Bay started releasing a lot of cool old horror flicks and stuff, and other things too, but majority I noticed with the horror, they started re-releasing stuff under there, and a lot of it has to do with copyrights, just who owns the rights to certain films and everything. That's really what it kind of boils down to a lot of times. But when you got something like this, like George Romero's film, it's going to be big, it's going to be popular. They're actually coming up with a new releasing of this soon. But this one here, I obtained later. I bought this actually from Kmart for like $14, and I've had it for all these years. This one here is the ultimate edition of it. It's, to me, one of the best editions that's ever came out. You can see it's the size of like a book because it has all types of editions in it. It really does. This movie has gotten, there's so many editions of this movie, it's crazy. Look at this, you can't even fit it all in the same shot. We have the US theatrical version, the extended version, the European version, and documentaries all rolled into this amazing box set here with a whole bunch of extras. I haven't actually looked at this stuff for a long time. There's a map of the mall. There's like this comic book thing, which is really cool. So all this stuff, really, that's one of the awesome things about this edition that there is. And I noticed that with DVD, before the Blu-ray battling thing came about and all that, where they battled Blu-ray and HD DVD or something like that. the DVDs really had a lot of cool stuff because it was about packing in all kinds of extras and really cool things into them. And then all of a sudden Blu-ray kind of took over, and it's like they kind of drifted away from that. And the only way like something like an ultimate Blu-ray edition, they just want to pack all that into a separate disc, charge you a lot more for it and all that. So I kind of was like, I don't know. And I think it's Sony that owns Blu-ray, so now you got a monopoly going on. So anyway, Dawn of the Dead is another one. This one definitely commands some high prices on there, but I don't know what the whole deal is. But it's coming out with a new 4K releasing, so that's going to be interesting to see. The other company is Arrow Video. I bought this set when it first came out. I saw this and rented this from Blockbuster on videotape. It's called House, directed by Sean S. Cunningham. Sean S. Cunningham is the father of Friday the 13th. He's the guy that created all that. So he drifted off and made House, which is a really cool haunted house kind of it's almost cartoony but really cool horror flick and everything. So there's actually 4 of these. The other 2, the 3 and 4 are kind of like not really official, although part 3 is like very strange. It's also known as Horror Show, and I never did see part 4, but the first one by no means this is the best one. And that's cool that they offered the slip covers, and that's one of the things I've been noticing with some of these companies. They were doing reversible slip covers, and I love the fact that they're putting the artwork from the old videotape days on the one side of the slipcover, at least. For people like me, that's what you remember, and that's what I have put on there. That's what's really cool about this. This box set is long out of print. Hopefully it'll come back around. You can still scavenge these things off of auctions and eBay and whatnot, but you're probably going to pay a premium, in which I don't think is worth it. I just don't see why. When somebody's paying hundreds or $100, or I mean, in some cases, I know some of the Friday 13th collections were fetching $300, and that's just insane. But I know that Scream Factory that's another cool company that's been doing a lot of horror flicks releasing. They're coming out with a new Friday the 13th box set I'm really excited for. It comes out in October. They got all the slip covers that are original to the videotape days. They did it right, whereas a box set should be, where each movie has its own individual jewel case and cover and disc, rather than trying to cram everything onto, like, one disc has part 1 and part 2 and etc. Like the Nightmare on Elm Street series is unfortunately like that. I wish they would change it. I hope they come out with a Nightmare on Elm Street box set like they are doing with the Friday the 13th. So you have both movies, House 1 and 2, and you have this really cool hardcover book that comes with it as well. So that was a really cool box set right here. Move this stuff out of the way so you can see. The other one here is what I consider almost the granddaddy, the Phantasm collection, which is like every time this thing comes around, it's out of print again. This one was another one that was difficult to find over time. I had acquired all 3 of my videotape editions on it from scouring video stores back in the day and waiting for them to sell them, and they did. It was amazing. I remember bought the first one for like $4.99. I like grabbed onto it. I was gripping the tape so hard. I was like, I can't believe they're selling this. But this is a box set that came out not too long ago, actually, and it's out of print. Or now, if you want to buy it, it's going to cost you a couple $100. I paid like $60 for this from Best Buy. This is all of them on Blu-ray. Really cool box set. It has all of this stuff. Look, I even have my ticket from when I went to go see a special premiere on this at a theater down here, and got to meet the director, Don Coscarelli. Yes, that's really cool. In fact, that's what's behind me. I don't know if you can see it. It's right here. I have the Phantasm poster that he signed for me. Little added plug-in. Don Coscarelli, the director and creator of Phantasm, was probably one of the most down-to-earth Hollywood celebrities I've ever met. And he just was so cool. He wanted to take pictures. He wanted to talk to the fans, and that means so much when you're dealing with that kind of stuff. Or versus where you get some of these guys that just sign your thing and they're just like, yep, bye. How's it going? I'm so happy you're like. I think they forget who made this all happen. So anyway, here's the box set. You've got all the original slipcovers, or the artwork on the slipcovers that I remember from videotape days. You got part 1, part 2, 3, 4. 4 came out a little bit later. That was something that I kind of was like, oh, I didn't really remember it all too well, because that was after the fact of everything. And of course the latest, Ravager. And then it comes with a really cool book and a poster and everything. But this one here is by, let's see, who did the releasing on this, which is interesting because I don't know who. This is not anybody I recall. Well Go Entertainment. Interesting. Some of these are Scream. Yeah, that's interesting. That this is so Scream Factory must own the rights to part 2, because this is actually labeled Scream Factory versus these other ones are not. This is Well Go Entertainment. So interesting that, there you go. That's an example of, it depends on distributors and who's got the rights and stuff like that to these things. There's other editions on this. I actually have the all of them on DVD as well. And so that's why I didn't go ahead and buy the other one that's out. And they have another one with the ball, and you open the ball up and then it's got all the discs in there and everything. I just felt like, you know, how many editions of this movie do you really need? I'm not all about spending an excessive amount of money on this stuff. Now, to get into some other things, like if you're like me, back in the very early days of wrestling, I used to be a really big wrestling fan. I don't really care for it anymore at all these days, but I was a big WWF fan. I loved all those days. Hulk Hogan, the Royal Rumbles of the early 90s and stuff was awesome. Royal Rumble is definitely one of my favorites. Here's one that's, although you can get the anthology now, that's what this is. It's part of the anthology. I only really cared about the first 3 anthologies because they're the only ones that had the Rumbles that I would have remembered, that I would have watched. This one was rather hard to find. The first 2 I could find fairly easily, but this one was a little bit difficult to find. I didn't think I was actually going to find it. Well, you could find it, but it was not a price that I was willing to pay. I thought paying $100 or something like this was absolutely outrageous. But this one had the 98 Royal Rumble on it. 98, and I vaguely remember the 2001 Royal Rumble. And the reason I remembered it was because we went to a bar to see it. You had to buy 2 drinks, go to the bar and watch this thing. So, but anyway, this one was kind of hard to find because I wanted it because they had the 98 Royal Rumble on it. I remember that one very, very much. It's a good Rumble. That was back when you had Mick Foley and stuff like that doing their thing. But and it was known as the Attitude Era. Yes, the Attitude Era was some of the most exciting stuff happened during that time. It was definitely not a kid's show. It was definitely a show geared for adults and whatnot. And I think the kids now, they're coming up, they never got to live through the best times of wrestling, in my opinion. Missed out big time on that. All right. So some of the other titles we got: Silent Night, Deadly Night, the ultimate horror Christmas type of thing, which is kind of, this has such a funny history where they really cast a lot of stones at this film series, especially the first one. The first one when it came out. That one is now no longer as out of print anymore. I do recall you can get them now from Scream Factory, that they re-released them, but for a while there they were kind of out of print and hard to get. But this one here, this collection, I've not seen. I saw it one time a while back. I had bought it, I'd lost it, and I had repurchased it. It was a little difficult to find. But this one has Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3, 4, and 5. I know there's that many of them. But I thought it was hilarious that they're not the greatest horror flicks, but they're cheesy slasher films, and I kind of like them. So, but the first one, when it came out, a lot of people, like I said, they cast a lot of stones at it. And funny is, Mickey Rooney was one of the people that just said, "Oh my!" I think his thing was, How dare they? I can't believe they're doing this to Christmas. That is like something like sacrilegious or something. He was one of the ones that definitely voiced his anti-statement towards the film. And guess who's starring in part 5? Mickey Rooney. All right, here's another cool one that I just actually recently picked up. It as fast as I heard about it, it seemed like go out of print. This one went out of print. It's from Shout Factory or Scream Factory, same company. It's called Demented. It's one of those Day of the Woman kind of stories. If you got also know the old movie called I Spit on Your Grave that came out in the 70s. This is kind of along those lines of the same thing. It's not a great movie. I watched it. It was not all that great. It's definitely like passé. But it wasn't that expensive. I heard it was out of print. Now, why does this one? I really wanted it. Well, of course. What is it called? It's called Demented. Ugh. I saw this on videotape at a motel. A motel that had videotapes you could rent as a guest at the hotel. And I saw this. We weren't staying at the motel. I don't believe we were staying there. I forget why we were stopped by there, but we were stopped by there for whatever reason. I saw this on videotape there, and I wanted to watch it so bad. And it had this same cover. It's basically this lady covered in blood that looks more like ketchup than it does blood. She's got this crazy look on her face, wielding a meat cleaver, and it says Demented written in blood. And of course the tape that I recall was very faded, very old. So I've always wanted, and I didn't know what it was called, and it was a very reclusive video for a long time until Shout Factory had come around and released it on Blu-ray, which is surprising. It's some of these films that they get a hold of and release them, but it's now since then gone out of print. I wanted to snag it up before it turned into one of those $30-$40 movies, which is totally not worth it. I paid $14 for it, and I felt like that was okay to take a chance on it. If I was knowing now what I know about it, I wouldn't pay more than $10 for it. Anyway, all right. Here's one that is definitely out of print, difficult to find. I came across this in one of my favorite exchange stores, the Bookman's. I go there a lot and scour their stuff. And this one is a Italian Giallo film, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I'm probably butchering that. It's called Hitcher in the Dark. Hitcher in the Dark. It's about this guy that's got a van and he goes around abducting women and torturing them and such. Typical gruesome Italian type films. If you know about the Italian horror films, you know some of the names, the big names like Ruggero Deodato did Cannibal Holocaust. There was a lot of these weird Holocaust cannibal type, titles that they were throwing around. There's always like Jungle Apocalypse, Jungle Holocaust, all this weird stuff. I'm not a big, I did once have the Holocaust Cannibal or Cannibal Holocaust on DVD. Reason I'm not a big fan of them is because there's animal cruelty on it. I don't support animal cruelty. They are Italian films. They were made at they were not American films. So, but just fair warning there, if you're looking at any of these like Jungle Holocaust or any of the Italian cannibal horror flicks, there's going to be a gratuitous amount of animal cruelty in it. I do not like that stuff, so I refuse to support it. This one here, this is just, it's a cool slasher film, Italian slasher films, which I don't mind those at all. They're great. This one here is by Uberto Lenzetti, which he did a lot of other ones. The other one is Lucio Fulci. Lucio Fulci's stuff is very popular, but this one's extremely hard to find, and I was actually surprised I came across it, so I snatched it up. I did pay a premium for it, like $20 or something like that, but you know what, at the rate I was not finding it, I didn't mind buying it. The other one, speaking of Italian horror, is The Beyond, and I talked about this one once, and I scoured back in the early days when the DVD was first coming around. This was a very hard disc to find. This was very hard to find. It was uncut, and so this is a Grindhouse releasing right here. They came out with it. Fantastic. It's all intact. It's Lucio Fulci, classic godfather of Italian gore and everything like that. His films are pretty over the top, pretty gory. Absolutely pick this one up, definitely. It's out of all the ones he's done, this was definitely one of the top billing. If I was going to pick some off the top of my hat right now, The Beyond, City of the Living Dead, and Zombie, and he did some other ones, like New York Ripper is pretty good. It's about a slasher serial killer kind of bit, but those are some of the ones, to name a few, that he did that are definitely worth grabbing up if you're like that genre. The other one is known as the goriest fright film of all time, directed by Peter Jackson, which everybody knows him now for Lord of the Rings, I believe, and all that kind of stuff. I could be wrong. I don't follow his newer stuff all too well. But this is a 90s film. Came out at one time. This was an abundant film. It was everywhere. It's called Dead Alive. Otherwise, it's also known as Brain Dead. It's just a zombie film, but it's absolutely over the top comedy, satire, just super gory, straight up just. It's just a mockery. I mean, it's just such but it's a good film. But again, it's hard to find. It is out of print. At one time, this was like, I remember this was in the $5 bin. No kidding, at Walmart for a while. So I didn't have it. I came across a copy of it at the record store for $14. I figured it was worth picking up, so I did. And yeah, that one's in there. So that's another comedy. If you just want to get a good laugh, get a couple of beers, a big bowl of popcorn with the boys, and just laugh, this is definitely, you won't be disappointed with that one. So some of the other ones now here. Night Game, Roy Scheider, talked about this. In fact, I have a vlog when I first bought this. Heard about this coming out. I bought this on videotape years back. It's a hidden gem of a Roy Scheider film. If you like Roy Scheider, you will love this. It's by Olive Films, so that's the distributor, assuming that this might go out of print. So it's still around right now, but I snagged it up. Didn't think this would ever see Blu-ray like that. Another one I picked up recently is called The Border with Jack Nicholson, Harvey Keitel, Warren Oates. This one's by Kino Lorber releasings. They have been releasing a lot of cool films. That's why I brought this out, because they've been releasing a lot of cool stuff that's been hard to find, that now is available, like Brannigan on Blu-ray. That was for a while there, that was commanding some serious money. Criterion is another company that's releasing a lot of cool stuff. Not that it's out of print, but Criterion does release a lot of cool titles, like such as Thief with James Caan. They usually produce these to a very high quality and everything. So if there is a title that you're interested in and it's on Criterion, I wouldn't hesitate to spend a few extra bucks and buy it on Criterion if it's a title that I really want. I find a lot of these at Barnes & Noble, the Criterion stuff. All right, the last one we're going to talk about, The Mechanic on Blu-ray. Also, slip covers, for whatever reason, when they come with the slip covers, hang on to these. They do jump the value a lot in them. I wanted this for a very long time on Blu-ray. It's one of my favorite Charles Bronson films, 1972. Jan Michael Vincent, also directed by Michael Winner, which directed a lot of Bronson's films. But this one, when it came out on Blu-ray, it was released by Twilight Times, and that was very out of print, very expensive. I saw those prices jump all the way up to over $100, which I was not going to pay at all for this. I had it on DVD, and I was going to be fine. But anyway, Scorpion Releasing, they released this. So that's another company that's out putting stuff out that's worth snagging. So anyway, thanks for hanging out and talking movies with me. I'm Bat Jack JW. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you